Hello and welcome to Face on Channel 1 Television. We are doing Government Accountability Series, except that this one is a close-up face-to-face conversation with a Chief Government Spokesperson. I am Umaru Sandamado. You're welcome. My guest is a member of parliament for Abra Sebo Kwamankese in the Central Region. He is Chief Government Spokesperson, Minister of State in charge of Government Communication. Honorable Felix Kwakye Ofosu, you're welcome.
Thank you.
How are you?
Oh, I'm okay.
We haven't done face-to-face since the beginning of the year.
Well, that is true. I think there have been some intervening matters, so we've not had the opportunity to.
How is your accountability series going?
Oh, it's going well. The last one was held last week, Thursday, when the Attorney General briefed the nation on the outcome of the government's review of the report of the Constitution Review Committee. You would recall that immediately after the committee presented this report, that's 22nd December last year, the President handed it over to the Attorney General and his legal counsel to study and advise government on what position to take. So they had been going through it with a fine comb. And sometime early this year, they indicated that the position paper was ready. So Cabinet has had 3 sessions on it. In fact, on one occasion, we spent the whole weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, poring over it.
Wow.
And then we held the last session about 3 weeks ago, after which we finalized government's position. So the AG was tasked with putting it together and informing the people of Ghana. So I had to organize the event, and it went quite well. I noticed that since then it's generated considerable debate, but that's the whole idea of publishing the position paper. We've also published a full report of the committee so that members of the public can assess for themselves the basis upon which some of the recommendations were made.
Why does the government consider this review of the Constitution a priority? Because among the first few things that the President did, setting up the committee, and it seems the government is interested in pushing this forward as quickly as possible. Why?
Well, I think that sufficient time has passed since the Constitution came into effect in 1991, I believe. It has served us well. I mean, it's the most enduring Constitution we've had. But for many years, there has been clamor for some review of the Constitution. Many eminent persons, many prominent personalities, significant sections of Ghanaian society have called for it. There have been efforts in the past to do so. You recall President Mel set up the Constitution Review Commission. They produced a report. Indeed, we were about implementing it when a major Supreme Court ruling put spokes in our wheels. So it had to be abandoned, more or less. And then President Akufo-Addo made some effort. At least I recall that the Honorable James Amosu, who was then majority leader, led a committee to look at aspects of the Constitution with a view to making recommendations for review. But that didn't see the light of day. So during the 2024 campaign, President Mama took on board the sentiments that had been expressed and committed to leading an effort to review the Constitution. And that's precisely what he has done. It is necessary, because society is dynamic. The Constitution that we operate was designed for a certain era, but time has passed. It's been 3 decades and a half. And over the period, many things have changed. The world is moving very fast. Our own society is evolving very quickly. And therefore, we need to adapt it to suit modern and current trends. Where we are falling short in the democratic experiment, we need to draw lessons and factor it into any review that we make. And where we need to strengthen or smoothen the rough edges around it, we have to do so. So it's a very, very important exercise for the President, and that is why you have seen the sort of effort that has gone into doing so.
So you gave the committee a job to go and hear from Ghanaians. The committee has heard from Ghanaians. In return to say that this is what Ghanaians want. Why are you picking or cherry picking the report and accepting some, rejecting some, modifying some? Why don't you just let us see what the committee has said and let us go ahead and act with that? Because that would be what the reflection of the ordinary people is.
From the very first day, we have made Ghanaians see what the committee has done. And last year, 22nd December, they presented an interim report. It was published the same day. In fact, I had a duty to publish so on the instructions of the President. It was published the same day. We published a full 693 page report that they submitted. So there's no question about transparency and allowing Ghanaians to see exactly what the committee recommended. But remember, there's a reason why they are called recommendations. It means that they propose that things be done a certain way. As government who commissioned the whole exercise, it was our duty to look through it and see which ones, in our view, based on our knowledge of governance, of the nation's finances, of how society operates, and how our country is shaping up, to decide or determine which ones must be implemented in the way that they've been recommended, which ones we can accept but modify, and which ones we believe cannot be applicable at the moment in view of the circumstances that we find ourselves in. So it's not that we have dismembered the recommendations or we are cherry picking, as some have said. If you look at the briefing that the Attorney General did, and in fact, we've also published a position paper, so you will see clearly. We accepted a majority of the recommendations. There are some that we accepted with modifications and some that we rejected. For instance, the 5-year term of the president. Mm-hmm. Mind you, it's not a new subject. Indeed, in recent memory, I think it was President Kufuor who first mooted the idea. He even proposed a 7-year single-term presidency.
Or 5-year, 2-term.
5-year, 2-term presidency. Since then, many prominent citizens have added their voice to it, and there have been calls for that to happen. The committee recommended 5 years, and we accepted it without any modification.
I've spoken to an analyst who thinks that is not good enough, because the argument is that you spend 1 year setting up your government and you spend another year going to elections, so you just have 2 years. But the point is being made that President Mahama, the government that you are in currently, set up within the first few months. So that's in fact, I spoke to Alhaji Yunus Afuseni, who said that President Mahama's second term has defeated that whole argument that the first year he has to set up, and that he managed to set up his government as quickly as possible. Now, if a president-elect is serious about building a country, he will know what he already wants to do. He won't come and be dilly-dallying. So the 5-year thing doesn't wash for him.
Well, you may not always get a government like what President Mahama leads. That must be taken on board. So it depends on the individual style. But either way, sufficient time has been given for the government to set up and start rolling out these policies. In the current regime, you barely have 2 years to do serious proper work. In fact, in 2013, because of the presidential election petition, the time was even much shorter. Then in 2028, that's the last year of the government in the 4-year period, you basically have to devote the whole time campaigning. I mean, you have to hold internal elections within political parties, and the whole conversation shifts to the next elections. You understand me? So it effectively leaves 2 years to do anything, which is simply too short. And we are a country with peculiar developmental challenges. We are a developing country with hydra-headed problems, many problems that require attention and significant resources. So enough time is required for that to be done. So in the view of government, after we deliberated around the subject at cabinet, we thought that the 5-year tenure is okay. It gives sufficient time.
But we learned from the US, and the US does 4 years.
It is fine, but there are other countries.
They are the model that we follow.
Well, I don't think that we are necessarily modeling ourselves after the US. I think our model really runs on the United Kingdom style, where they don't have specific tenure. Indeed, the Prime Minister can call elections at any time. And there's really no, if you like, term limit for the leader. But we married both the US and UK systems in order that we get the best out of the two. It does not mean that on our own we cannot fashion out a system that best suits our circumstances, despite drawing important lessons from more advanced democracies. So we believe that the 5-year tenure is okay. In any event, it will be subject to a referendum.
The argument
Ghanaians will decide whether they agree with our position or not, and whatever outcome there is, we are bound by it.
The argument is made that you have 5 years, you have a good president, is great, we enjoy the benefits. But if you have a Nebuchadnezzar and you're going to stay under him for 5 years, that's not good enough. And that the people would suffer. And they may even think of using other means of changing the government rather than the ballot box. Have you considered that?
Well, there are two issues. There's a reason why when you are going to elect somebody as president, you need to do a proper assessment of the person. You need to assess the person's track record, what they've done over the period.
People can change.
Well, that is true, but people do not change so drastically as to veer off completely from what they have been known for all their life. So we need to take the process of election very seriously. You must listen carefully and assess the people thoroughly before you entrust power to them. It's most unlikely that if there are any bad traits, it can be hidden for that long. It would have come up somewhere, especially in a system where many of the people who vie for public office to the level of president have a certain record in public service. So you can see what they have been up to. Number two, the Constitution itself makes provision to address instances where a president's performance is not satisfactory through the impeachment proceedings. Those remain in the Constitution. So those can be triggered depending on how Parliament is shaped up or the mood of the country. So I don't think that all is lost in terms of one's ability to hold leaders to account, even within a 5-year tenure. But by all means, proper and diligent assessment must be made of whoever is entrusted with the office of president.
You've talked about track record, but here's the case. You've also reduced the age qualification to 35. The committee actually wanted 30.
Yes.
I mean, you finish national service at age 23, 24. What really can you do in life for 7 years to qualify to be president? And even if you take it to 35, that'll be what, 12 years. What experience can you really have within that period to govern a country? That's another argument that has been made. Why did you settle on 35 and not keep it at 40?
Well, to answer your question, let me begin with the concern that you expressed about what you perceive to be a lack of experience on the part of a 35-year-old. The thing is that, again, people will decide. So they will assess the person and see whether at 35, the person has achieved enough or has demonstrated capacity to handle such a high office. So it's up to the people to decide. But the point is that the Constitution Review Committee recommended the age to be brought down from 40 to 30. But Cabinet thought that 30 is way too young. And a certain level of experience and maturity is required in life. We believe that by 35, the person should show clear signs of that. And there would have been sufficient time between the time they complete school or any other pursuits that they may be engaged in and the time that they decide to become president for one to assess their capacity to hold that high office. In any event, the world is moving. There are societies that tend to favor people within the much older generation. And then there are societies that are more liberal, more progressive,
for the younger
that go for young people. Indeed, Emmanuel Macron
very young.
became French president at 39. And that was a first world country, or it's a first world country, one of the most industrialized, one of the wealthiest, part of the G7 group of nations. And yet they elected a 39-year-old centrist president, who at the time was not even a member of one of the biggest political parties in French society. I believe that Austria, a few years ago, had a prime minister who was barely in his early 30s.
Yeah.
Recently, the Netherlands has elected somebody in his 30s. And these are very wealthy, more complex societies than ours, who have reposed confidence in the youth. In any event, tomorrow, currently, statistics show that about 60% of the Ghanaian population is made up of people who are classified as youthful. So in a society like that, I don't think that it is fair to exclude the largest chunk of our population on account of perceived inexperience or, if you like, immaturity. At 35, one should show there are successful people who are 35 years old. There are people in that age bracket running very successful businesses and what have you. So I think we should repose confidence in them. But as I indicated, the moment you put yourself up for election to be president, people will assess. You will be scrutinized. So if there are any reasons why you should not be president, I'm sure it will come up and people will make decisions.
Why didn't you use this opportunity to put in or remove the controversial issue about a third term for a president? Because that is a subject of Supreme Court decision. The president currently has said he doesn't think there's any point, but because it's controversial, why didn't you think that the committee should have put it in there that, presidential term limit shall be only to whether successive, consecutive, and so on?
Well, I don't think that, and I'm sure the Constitution Review Committee shares the view, we don't think that there's any ambiguity in the Constitution. You know, what happened was that in the heat of the 2024 elections, I mean, the MPP somehow saw that all was lost. They were on the verge of being booted out. So they came up with this very desperate bit of propaganda about the third term. But it was never really an issue. President Obama has been clear on it. He was on an international platform in Singapore. He said so. About 3 weeks ago in Ho, he said same. So there has never been doubt about what the Constitution says. So we didn't really think.
But what if the Supreme Court decides that he can, will he?
Well, there's no indication as of now where I sit that President Obama has changed his mind on the matter. Yes.
Which means that he's not going to run for third term.
As I'm saying, there's no indication that such a thing will happen. I mean, in any event, we are in the realm of speculation, aren't we? So maybe the Supreme Court may bring even further clarity to the matter. But as far as we are concerned, it is very clear, and there's no doubt about it.
Let's deal with another thing that the Constitution Review Committee has brought about, the decoupling of the Attorney General and Ministry of Justice. What's government position on that?
Well, I think that is in the position paper. The Attorney General believes that we should have an Attorney General who is separate from the Minister of Justice. So the Minister of Justice is a member of government. principal legal advisor of government and takes care of all matters legal on behalf of government. And then an attorney general who has the power to prosecute, who is not a member of government, so doesn't have ministerial authority. If I'm not mistaken, he says that such a person should have the rank of a Supreme Court, should have analogous terms as a Supreme Court justice to sufficiently empower him carry out his responsibility. So that shows that government itself has no problem with decoupling the office.
So it's something you want to put to the public.
Oh, absolutely. Yes, it will be in the.
Let's talk about
the public domain. Yeah.
The election of MMDCs. In 2018, President Akufo-Addo wanted us to elect our MMDCs on partisan lines. You said no, you didn't want that to happen. Yes. Many years on, you have come back with the same thing. It's still a partisan approach, except that this one is just one party, not multi-party. Why have you decided that the president should appoint 5 people to be elected by the people when you could have opened it up for everybody who wants to run?
Let me indicate that government is not opposed to Ghanaians electing their DCs. Except that we believe that we have to tarry on that subject because there are many bottlenecks that need to be overcome. We do not believe that as of now we have sufficiently put in place the institutional mechanisms to check partisan abuse at the district assembly level or at the district level. And so we need to tarry. In fact, when President Mahama assumed office, the process that we used to select DCs was fairly competitive. What happened was that people were made to apply. Then a committee vetted them and made recommendations to the president. So the president appointed people based on recommendations given him by a committee that looked into applications. So people were not just headhunted. We didn't go about tapping partisan officials or members of the NDC to become DC. You have to go through a certain process to bring out the very best. Now, the government is of the view that we should let the president retain the power to appoint, except that there should be a process that is expansive enough so that we get the best to man these districts. So 5 people will be selected, nominated, I beg your pardon, including at least 2 women. And that stipulation is important so that we give meaning to the oft-repeated mantra of gender balance and gender equity in political appointments and public office holders. And then 3 will be shortlisted, one of which must be a woman. You understand me? At least one of them must be a woman. If we have all 3 be women, so much the better for it. But at the very least, there must be a woman in there. And then out of these 3, elections will be held to select one to become the DC. So there's a certain level of participation.
All these 5 people will be NDC people.
Well, not necessarily.
The president will not nominate
non-NDC people. Not necessarily. It's not automatic that it will be NDC people. Yes, there's a likelihood for people to be NDC in there, but I don't think it's automatic that they have to be.
You expect the president to appoint?
No, but look at the process that was used to appoint the current DCs. I've told you that people applied.
Yes. And but the party vets it.
Yeah, no, it's not. It wasn't just a party issue. There were
people
who were not
necessarily. The party chairman was.
The party chairman was there, but there were people who were not necessarily partisan.
Yeah, but party chairman in charge of selecting.
The party chairman wasn't in charge. The party chairman was there. There was a committee that made the decision based on the applications that they received. But I'm saying that
but
at
you
least
ended up giving it to your
at least. But Umaru, we need to start from somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
So we have put in place a system, or we are proposing a system that allows people to be part of the selection process through elections. So it's entirely possible that they will reject all 3. They can protest the candidacy of all 3 and not show up at the election. And there's no election itself, so nobody is elected. In fact, even in the current system, the assembly has to confirm the president's nominee. At AAK, we have to hold about 2 or 3 elections before the DC nominee could be accepted. And mind you, the assemblymen represent communities who have elected him in open democratic elections to represent them. So he goes to the election of a DC or confirmation of a DC with the mandate of his people. So the system we have is not entirely undemocratic, as many people would make it appear, except that we are refining it to make it more inclusive. But I believe that the day will come when we have open competitive elections to elect DCs. But I don't think...
Why is that day not now?
But I think that we need to get there.
If I want to contest...
No, you see, there are practical difficulties that we must confront. As it is now, our local government system is financed from the center. There are very few assemblies who have the capacity to generate resources internally. What will define or make the independence of these assemblies complete is the ability to generate their own revenue to run their districts. But at the moment, they don't have that capacity. They have to depend on central government. So in the event that you have somebody who is hostile politically towards the central government, there's a likelihood of sabotage. The government can find all ways to starve that district of resources. The reverse is also true. You can also have somebody who deliberately decides that because of political disagreement with the central government, they will underperform in order, and people would naturally blame the central government for underdevelopment because of the way that our system works. So we need to put in place the systems that check these in order that when we roll out fully, the system is robust enough to operate seamlessly. That is all that we are asking for. So we are urging caution. But the principle that DCs must be elected is one that we do not disagree with at all. Indeed, people are going to have the opportunity to elect their DCs based on 3 nominees presented them.
Are you permanently opposed to politicizing the district assembly elections, or you are saying that the time is not right?
I think the same principle applies. Elsewhere, elections are for district assemblies or local government offices are along partisan lines. Mm-hmm. They are competitive and they are open to all. But again, we have systemic challenges, some of which I've just highlighted to you, that we need to avert our minds to before we make that ultimate decision. But the idea that we need to elect DCs is not one that we are opposed to.
We're trying to.
That is the ideal situation.
But we want to take power from the president. But what you have just done is reinforcing the
power.
No.
At least the president has devolved some of his powers by subjecting his nominees to open, democratic elections.
But it's always been the assembly members always endorsed.
That is limited. That is limited, and it is representative, really. But this time around, the entire population of the districts, to the extent that they are registered to vote, have a stake in who becomes DC. That is devolution of power, except that you will say that it's not being done fully. But I think we will get to the level where we do it fully. But for now, we believe that we need to tarry in order not to throw the baby away with the bathwater.
One more thing, Parliament, you want it to be raised up to 300. Why?
Well, the idea
the chamber is even small.
The idea was that we should cap the number of MPs. So the Constitution Review Committee recommended that we cap it at the present level, numbers 276. We are of the view that we can use the opportunity to engage in some affirmative action also. One of them is that we, for donkey years, purported to encourage women's participation in parliamentary elections.
But it's just theory.
But it's become theory because there are practical impediments that prevent that from happening. Currently, we have 276 MPs, and just about 20 of them are women, woefully inadequate. Often there's a struggle to get women to participate for various reasons, either through economic shortcomings or concerns about the kind of politics we practice and how they become under attack. So many women are discouraged for various reasons from participating in our democratic effort. And Parliament is one of the places that suffers the most. So we are of the view that after we cap it, the elected members at 276, the remaining 24 slots that would take it to 300 should then be used to address some of these imbalances. So for instance, gender representation, persons living with disability, for instance. Apart from Dr. Seydou Dana, who
served as minister for
chieftaincy under President Mahama, we've hardly had someone with that within that bracket.
I think
serving at the high level. Yeah, there was one in the Oti regional minister, but it is far and few between. It happens once in a while. Depends on the president's mood. You understand?
So you want it to become like a law.
We should use that opportunity.
But who would appoint them? So is it the president?
In fact, no, not the president. What do you call it? The Attorney General indicated that a process will be put in place to select those people.
So it's not as if the president will have the power to appoint
the president is not going to appoint people.
But then
that would defeat the very idea of the legislature checking the executive.
So they would sponsor. So the Ghana Federation of Labour, for instance, will sponsor.
So identifiable groups who are known, who are accepted to be credible, maybe we'll have the opportunity then to elect or nominate people to fill those positions. But the modalities will be clearly spelled out. Once that recommendation is voted upon.
What happens next? The government has accepted some, rejected some. What's the next process in this constitution?
I think the next process is that a Constitution Review Implementation Committee will be set up. And there too, the Attorney General indicated government's intent to be inclusive. We've already sent a request to the New Patriotic Party and the minority in Parliament to nominate someone to sit on the committee. And they've nominated Honorable Kwame Enyimedu, a vastly experienced legislator, a lawyer, who certainly knows a thing or two about constitutional democracy. So he is a minorities rep. The majority will also send a representative. And then either a retired Supreme Court justice is likely to chair the implementation committee. Very soon we will announce the membership and composition of that committee. And then to be their job to carry on the work of the review committee and ensure that the processes that need to be undertaken to have the amendments effected are undertaken.
So there'll be some that Parliament will do, right? And then
yes,
there'll be
there
some
are those that
will
are not entrenched. We just need to test majority in Parliament.
Which
so
you
it will be
can-
taken to Parliament. It will be deliberated upon. I'm sure even at parliamentary level, some additional inputs will be made.
Okay.
And then we'll vote on it. To the extent that we get to test majority to vote on the various recommendations, they will become law. Those that are entrenched, we will subject it to referenda. But we have said that in order to save resources, we'll do it together with the National Assembly elections that are slated for the middle of next year. There's a third category of recommendations that do not require constitutional amendment. They can be addressed with legislative tweaking. So there are certain laws that capture those already. But where there's a need to strengthen the laws, we'll just do an amendment of the law, acts of parliament, and then they will come into effect. So this is how it will pan out.
This is Face to Face on Channel 1 Television. I'm Umaru Sanda. One of my guests is the Honorable Felix Kwakye Ofosu, who is Minister of State in charge of Government Communication. When we come back, Sedina Tamakloe has been freed. The MPP is angry. They are going on a demonstration. We'll find out from the government what the thinking is. Please stay.
The entries are in and the marking has officially begun. Who will make it to level 2 of the Literacy Challenge 2026? Listen out for randomly selected entries on Branch in the City and the Traffic Avenue on 97.3 City FM and on Breakfast Daily on Channel 1 TV. The top 100 contestants from across Ghana's 16 regions will be announced on Tuesday, 11th August 2026. Next up is level 2, the aptitude test. The top 100 contestants from across Ghana to make it to the next round shall take part in a written aptitude test on Sunday, 16th August 2026 at 12:30 p.m. at the British Council, Accra. Stay tuned, the journey continues. The Literacy Challenge 2026 is powered by City FM with support from Channel 1 TV, and it's proudly sponsored by Prospectus Ghana Limited, SIC Insurance, Advocate Publishing, Tema Oil Refinery, and Delhi Group.
You're welcome back. This is Face to Face on Channel 1 Television. Something happened at the Court of Appeal, Honorable Felix. The former CEO of Maslock, first of all, she started trial, or she was on trial, left this country, never came back, and was forcefully brought back. Unless you would say to me that that's not what happened. Then we were told she went to Nsawam, and then now she's free. The MPP thinks that there's an elephant, they smell an elephant in this whole thing, that it's a cooked up thing that government has done. How can you defend this? And how can you explain to the ordinary Ghanaian that government had no intent or hands in what happened?
Well, if the elephant smells an elephant, then you must know exactly where the stench is coming from. Certainly not from government. Again, you see, political parties who wish to be taken seriously must espouse seriousness. They must project seriousness. Unfortunately, I don't think that the MPP has been serious in this particular discourse. So exactly what are they opposed to? They are opposed to the appeals courts of Ghana doing its work. Otherwise, I don't understand what the fuss is about. You see, Sedina Tamakloe.
They say Mahama has freed someone who has stolen money.
How so? Did Mahama sit on the case in question?
When the Supreme Court used to act in a certain way, you used to say Akufo-Addo was the one doing it.
No, so there have to
at
be
the Supreme
ingredients. So, for instance, when you pass the Supreme Court, shortly before cases are adjudicated, you put judges on the court, and then they are instantly paneled to adjudicate cases. People will raise eyebrows. People are free to disagree with the rulings of courts. I have done so on many occasions. But you must look at each case on its own merits. So what happened? Sedina was put on trial by the Akufo-Addo administration, acting through its Attorney General. Sometime in 2022, she sought the leave of the court, and the court granted her permission to go to the United States of America to seek treatment. She didn't come back. The NDC cannot be faulted for that. It is the MPP that can be faulted for that. They didn't go after her until after 2 years, in 2024, when after she was convicted in April, the Attorney General then put together an extradition request at the time to the US authorities. When we came to power, we didn't do anything to alter that request. Indeed, we followed through, and she was brought back to Ghana. Now, in May of 2024, when the MPP was in power, Sedina exercised the same rights that every Ghanaian is entitled to and put in an appeal against the High Court ruling.
Godfrey Dame said he did not see it.
But,
It did not
but
come to
it
his
doesn't
attention.
matter. It does not invalidate the
Which
fact.
means that it could have been cooked after he left.
No, it does not invalidate the fact. You are the journalist. The authoritative source of information on that appeal is the registry of the appeals court. Period. Not Godfrey Dame. He is a partisan attorney general seeking to muddy the waters with claims that cannot be sustained. He, as attorney general, is not the one who grants veracity to any claim that an appeal has been filed. It is the appeals court registry. And that is not in doubt. It is clear. The records show it clearly. So, Godfrey Dame's claims do not come in here. Again, one would even raise questions about his competence if he says that he doesn't know that an appeal was in there. But in any event, that is immaterial. The appeals court then set a date to hear the matter and pronounce judgment. They did so last week. And in their view, Sedina must walk because they don't believe that the prosecution proved this case. That is the fundamental principle of the rule of law. At the heart of democratic governance is the rule of law, which means that if the institutions of states who are charged with specific responsibility perform it, unless you can show any specific wrongdoing with what they've done, you accept it. You can disagree, so disagree. But channel the criticism to its appropriate quarters. The claim that somehow government had anything to do with this is bogus, and I came out strongly in the aftermath of the ruling and the claims being made by the MPP to say this. It is a bogus proposition. It defies logic, it defies common sense. If you look at the chronology of events, the NEC had nothing to do with any of these events. One, we were not in power when Sedina left. So if the idea was that we instigated her leaving this territory, it is false. Godfrey Dame was the Attorney General at the time. He was in court, or his prosecutors were in court, when the court granted Sedina leave to go. The 2 years that he was in office after Sedina left, he didn't bring Sedina back. Indeed, Sedina came back after they had left power and the NEC came into power. It is because we followed up on that extradition. For the avoidance of doubt, the day Sedina landed in Ghana till the appeals court made this pronouncement, she had always been in prison custody. So the claim somehow that she was at home and that she was not being kept by prison authorities is blatantly false.
We didn't see evidence.
But why? What's the evidence that Wontumi is in jail now? What's the evidence that the person sentenced to prison last week is in jail at the moment? What's the evidence? Should we publish a picture or should we show videos of Sedina in prison before you see that she was in prison? So that demand is untenable. The evidence that Wontumi is in prison is based on what the prison service has told you. Is that not so?
Yeah.
Or the fact that you saw him being transported in a prison. But have you gone to the prison to see him? No.
Some
you
people,
don't need to do.
Some people went there.
I'm saying that you don't need to do so to accept the fact that Wontumi, as far as we are concerned, Wontumi is in prison. The agency or authority that has jurisdiction for that is the prison service. So that claim too was false. It was all part of this narrative aimed at somehow discrediting the process without basis. Now, if you put the process aside and the fact that the appeals court has the right, indeed, the very reason why the appeals court exists is instances like this. So that when you are not happy about a ruling of a high court, you can go there. But even if we were to put that aside, since the judgment became public and people started reading, you have seen a wave of public support for what the appeals courts did. Now, I'm not saying that that's necessarily the position of government. I have heard lawyers, including MPP lawyers, agree that the appeals court had basis. Indeed, some of them have actually faulted the prosecution and labeled Dame's prosecution as incompetent, and that they actually blame him for the situation that we are in. Because the law is clear that for criminal cases, you must prove beyond reasonable doubt. So if any doubt exists, as you see in the appeals court ruling, the appeals court has no option than to free the person. The other point I want to raise is that if you look at the composition of the appeals court that sat on this matter, 2 of the judges were appointed by the MPP administration, President Akufo-Addo, to be precise, and one was appointed by President Mahama. And it was a unanimous verdict. None of them disagreed with the other in their judgment. And the judgment has become public. People have read it. But the Attorney General has said that he disagrees with the appeals court ruling. So he has done 2 things. He has filed a stay of execution, which means that until, in his view, the matter is determined, Sedina should not be released. And I can tell you that Sedina has not been released. She is still in custody.
Why?
Because the Attorney General wants the stay of execution head first.
But that again is seen as a defilement of the human rights.
No, it shows you the seriousness that the Attorney General attaches
Yeah,
to the
but
matter.
but the human rights lawyers would say that is wrong.
Well, it's a matter for the courts to determine.
Yeah, because-
My understanding is that even though the legal vacation has started, the appeals court judges have warrant to sit on the matter.
But
they'll
the
look at it.
agent. So it means that Sedina is still in custody.
Yeah,
even
because-
though court says she can go
Yes,
home.
that's my understanding. That's the information I have from the Attorney General. The second point also is that the Attorney General has said that he will appeal
To the Supreme Court.
to the he will appeal the decision. So based on that, we will know what the way forward is. But any claim that somehow government is to be faulted is emotive. It is not logical. It is not based on any sound reasoning.
A lot of your people are saying that the optics are not good. Have you thought of that?
First of all, you see, the most abused word these days is optics, where people say that in order that people are happy, in order to stave off criticism, we must do things a certain way, even if it is lawful. You cannot sacrifice an individual's liberty on the altar of optics. Some of the people who use the word do not understand what they are saying. You cannot allow an innocent person to stay in prison one day simply because people will be happy. You see, we do not rule on the basis of mob mentality. You can't say, for instance, that the moment somebody shouts thief, everybody should pounce on the person running away and beat him up, even before they find out whether indeed he has done anything wrong. You understand me? So that optics claim is unfounded. It is not one that we must accept.
There's another
Governments don't exist to engage in optics. We must engage in reality. You understand me? What we pursue must be real. It must be tangible. You don't do it because people who had not read the judgment. There are some who hadn't even followed the case at all. They had only heard that Sedina had been convicted by the High Court. They didn't even know what she was charged with, beyond the headline that they read. And you are saying that because of the views of such people, if the appeals court has grounds to overturn what the High Court did, they shouldn't do it. And in any event, if the appeals court does it, on what basis is government accused of bad optics? How is the government responsible?
There's
for it?
another part. They don't call down optics. They call it settings. They say that the Attorney General's reaction after is just pure settings, and that the government is just blowing hot and cold.
I will dismiss that as misguided MPP propaganda. That's what that it is.
Especially since members of your party are celebrating members of the government are celebrating the release.
There's no basis.
And yet a member of the government is also going to court.
There's no basis. There's no basis for that claim. You understand me? Everybody has their right to hold a view. So if there are sessions of the NDC who are happy that Sedi has gained her freedom, they are entitled to hold that view. It does not stop government from doing what it believes it has to do, and government is doing it. So this narrative, it is MPP propaganda that must be dismissed.
The opposition says democracy is under attack. They have scheduled Thursday to go on a demonstration over this decision and more. They also talk about want to miss jailing. They say it's political prisoner and all of that. How does government respond?
Ridiculous waste of time. You see, how does democracy come under attack when institutions of the state weak? At the heart of democracy is the rule of law. And the entity or the arm of state that supervises that is the judiciary. It was the judiciary of Ghana through the High Court that jailed Sedina, not so. Mm-hmm. That was acceptable. Is that not so? Mm-hmm. So if the same judiciary through the appeals court, after having reviewed the case, frees her, how is that a threat against democracy? How does our democracy collapse because an individual has won a case in court? So the claim they are making is at odds with common sense and logic.
You say you are jailing their people and freeing your people.
No, how so?
You do nolli prosequi and your
how
people.
So? When the Attorney General did nolli prosequi, for the first time in our history, he publicly explained why he had done so. Number two, it's not the first time that nolli prosequi has been done in Ghana's history. Godfrey Dame did the nolli prosequi in their 246 case. He freed one, or he let one of the accused persons go in the shape of Dr. Animana. He didn't even explain why he did so. Indeed, when President Kufuor or the MPP lost the 2008 elections, Nana Akufo-Addo Rawlings was standing trial. Right after the elections, they issued a nolli prosequi. They didn't even explain why they had done so. Nolli prosequi exists in our laws. It allows the Attorney General at any point in time in the trial to say that he is discontinuing based on reasons that he himself knows. Often they are not compelled to explain, but this Attorney General has explained it. Number two, what has one case got to do with the other? So because Sedi has won her freedom through a court's pronouncement, if Wontumi is guilty, he doesn't have to be convicted. How so? When the MPP was in power, did they not convict several NDC leaders? The NCA case, Mr. Bafu Boni and Alhaji Usman, the former Deputy National Security Court, they did not convict him. Indeed, under President Kufuor's time, the likes of Sipayanki, Ibrahim Adams, Kwame Pepra, Chajuchi Kata, Victor Selumi, did they not convict all of those people? Why do they think that they have a special... No, in fact, even to say that they convicted would be wrong. Did the courts of Ghana not convict these people on the basis of prosecution that the government, through the attention of the time, did? If that is acceptable, why should we say that Wuntumi's case is an exception? To the extent that the facts have been gone into and a lawful process has been undertaken. Indeed, only last week or so, Wuntumi put in an appeal, which he is entitled to do. So it will go before the appeals court. They will set a date. If they are convinced that there is merit in Wuntumi's argument, I'm sure they will ask that he should be freed. If they are not convinced, they will say he should continue his sentence. I beg your pardon. That is the position of the law. That's what we all signed up to.
But they say you're intolerant. You're arresting TikTokers, free speech is under attack, democracy is under attack, and that's why they're embarking on that demonstration.
Again, it is clear that they are confused about what they are demonstrating about. In one breath, it's about the judiciary. In another breath, it is not. Nobody has been picked up for free speech. Why? There are many MPP people who on a daily basis continue to criticize it, including Anabi himself. After this ruling, he held a press conference to level all manner of baseless claims against government. Who has picked him up? But if you sit on TikTok and threaten the life of a president, you say you will behead the president, put him in a cocoa sack and attack his wife, you cannot go scot-free. If you did that in any advanced democracy, they will hold you. There's a woman who made similar threats against Donald Trump and was jailed. If you threaten somebody's life, let alone that of a president, the law will catch up with you. Or if you make pronouncements that threaten the peace, or is likely to undermine the security of a country. In advanced democracies, that happens. There are things that you cannot see in relation to the Holocaust in some countries.
Someone abused yes. Dr. Bawumia. He said they should not prosecute that person.
That's what is expected
of the president.
The test of Dr. Bawumia's sincerity in that is not when he's in opposition and seeking to take political advantage of a certain narrative. When he was vice president, Bobi Ansa accused his wife and then the then first lady, Madam Rebecca Akufo-Addo, of appropriating state land for saying that the government of the day in which Dr. Bawumia was vice president put him on trial. As I speak to you, that trial is actually still ongoing. The matter is still in court. What was Dr. Bawumia's position on that? Did he offer a whimper at the time when he had power? At the time when he was in a position to influence the decision of God? No, let me land. Mm-hmm. He didn't do so. So nobody can take this latest pronouncement seriously. He's only attempting to take advantage. It's convenient politicking that he's engaging in my view.
Do you not worry that the image of the government is being tainted by the protests by the opposition, the lamentations? For instance, the arrest of Dennis Miracle, the protests we've seen at EOK and all of that. Do you not worry that as governments...
When the Akufo-Addo government arrested Sedina, when they arrested Atufor and arrested all the people that, some of whom were convicted by the courts, they did dent the government's image. How does arresting somebody accused of a crime dent the government's image? Indeed, is it not the same people of Ghana who have demanded action in the shape of oral? Some of them even accuse government of being too slow in the prosecution of oral cases. And yet when the same government prosecutes people, we are told that its image is being dented. The two scenarios cannot coexist. One has to give way to the other. And so people must be certain. They must make up their minds what position they are taking on the matter. They are either supporting the fight against corruption or they are not. Okay. But in fact, we had a situation where one person was convicted, people protested. One person too was freed by the courts, people protested. So exactly what should we do now?
This is Face to Face on Channel 1 Television. When we come back, we'll talk about the economy and the attempt the government is making at the fuel stations to reduce the burden on Ghanaians. Please stay.
Life has a way of piling on the pressure, but what happens when stress begins to affect your health, your relationships, and your peace of mind? This week on Lifeline, we begin an important conversation on understanding stress, recognizing its warning signs, and learning healthy ways to manage it before it manages you. Join Bishop Fred Kranche-Mensah for a part 1 of stress management.
Stress can silently drain your mind, your body, and your peace. But you see, the interesting thing is that what you understand, you can control. Welcome to Lifeline. Is there an amount of stress that can enhance growth and development?
Everybody needs stress.
Okay.
Everybody is stressed. So if you take, for example, the DAS, that measures depression, anxiety, and stress. you realize that we have the normal category, normal.
Okay.
Everybody has some stress.
So there is a level of stress that is normal.
Yes.
When I have a spike right now, maybe 2 or 3 ways I can calm down and deal with it.
Okay. Let's look at them. The first and easiest one is to sprinkle cold water on your face.
Okay. Sprinkle cold water on
Yeah.
your face.
Yeah.
Lifeline airs every Tuesday and Thursday at 10 p.m. only on Channel 1 TV.
Yeah, welcome back. This is Face to Face on Channel 1 Television. The government is not able to control fuel prices. They left you very beautiful figures at the pumps. Since you came, the thing has been skyrocketing.
Well, it's untrue that they left beautiful figures at the pump. The government has never controlled all the factors that go into fuel pricing. We've known this since day one. There's no debate about it. Fuel price is determined by the world market price of either crude oil or the finished products that are brought into the country. Then there's an element of taxation and foreign exchange, which government controls. Under the MPP, they fail to control the two things that they could control in the shape of the exchange rates and then the taxes and margins that are put on petroleum. Because they actually increase ESLA and increase the margins that the regulator takes. So if they could not control the world market price, at least these two, they should be able to contain. It is a reason why fuel got to around 23 Ghana cedis a litre under the MPP. When we came to power, because of our ability to control the exchange rates and do something about the margins, i.e. through the removal of 2 cedis from the margins, we were able to keep fuel at an affordable rate. Indeed, in the first year of this government and the succeeding 2 or 3 months, fuel prices dropped continuously. On about 12 occasions or so, fuel prices dropped. 12 pricing windows, fuel prices dropped to a level where at a point, it came under 10 cedis a litre. So much so that some OMCs even began an open price war to encourage customers to patronize their products. So it is clear what the track record of this government is. However, the factor that no government controls, which is the world market price of fuel, has ensured a certain rise in the price on the world market because of the closure of the Strait of Hormuz and because of the volume of traffic for fuel and fuel products through that strait. It directly impacted the price. When that happened, we said that no, as a government, we cannot sit aloof and allow citizens to suffer. So we put in a measure to cushion the Ghanaian public. And we sat at cabinet and we agreed that 2 cedis out of the margin that the regulator takes should be knocked off on diesel. And the reason is simple. Diesel is a predominant fuel for operators within the transport sector, so that it does not impact fares and then create a cascading effect for prices, which then drive up the cost of living. So that is the thinking around it. But I need to draw your attention to the fact that fuel prices, at least the world market price of fuel, is hovering around the same figure that it hovered around in November 2022, when fuel sold at 23 Ghana cedis a litre under the MPP.
At the time, they said it was Russia or Ukraine.
No,
you said they had no right to talk about
so
Russia.
If you listen
Ukraine.
to me carefully,
Yes.
you'll get the answer. Fuel prices or world market price of crude oil is the same now as it was in November 2022, around $84, $86 a barrel.
The prices are different.
Yeah, no.
And I'm saying that, but the pump prices are different.
Yes, why? The pump price is lower now. Even before this 2 cedi reduction, it was lower. The reason is the exchange rate. In November 2022, the exchange rate was 17.2 cedis to a dollar under the MPP. Currently, it's around 12. That is what accounts for the lower figure now than it was under the MPP. So I've seen MPP propagandists claim that they left us fuel prices that were lower than what is selling now. At the time they were leaving, the world market price was not where it was now, and the exchange rate was not where it is now. So if you want to understand the difference between the two governments, check the price in November 2022 and the price now, when the world market price of crude oil impacted the prices. That sums up the issue. We have been better managers of fuel, and everybody attests to it. Indeed, when was the last time in the history of Ghana that for 1 year continuously fuel prices dropped? It has never happened in our history. It happened under the NDC government. We are hopeful that the ceasefire announced will hold after these initial skirmishes. Indeed, there have been announcements that there will not be an attack on Iran. That led to some reduction in the price of crude. We hope that it continues. If that happens, the price of fuel will come down. But to emphasize, the two factors that we control have been controlled by government.
Okay. Now, the 2 cedi you've knocked off is part of your budgetary projections. The question is, who suffers, or how we will eventually suffer because of these 2 cedis you've taken off? Because it will have a gap in the in the revenue.
No. So the 2 cedis come from margins. Margins go to the regulator and industry players. It doesn't come to government. So government's revenue will not suffer in that regard. Just that we have been able to work aside that it is coming from the margins. So that is a difference between
the point has also
been taken from taxes.
The point has also been made that this is a temporary measure, and that we should have a more permanent measure where we have a proper buffer stock that we are dealing with when it comes to petroleum, that we should have a way of having a proper import cover, and that we shouldn't be always swaying to the behavior at the global market.
Well, 2 things.
What's government doing long term to deal with that?
2 things. The first is that currently we do not have capacity to store beyond this. I think the maximum we have is 6 weeks. So beyond that, if we do not have a strategic stock, it will become a difficulty. Fortunately, we've not had fuel shortages because we source crude oil and other finished products from sources that are reliable. So we've not had that problem. Last week or so, the president was at a ceremony to take delivery of 1 million barrels of crude for Tamakloe Refinery, which means that Tamakloe Refinery is back. When they refine crude oil, it makes it cheaper at the pump because then they cut out some margins and other computations that go into the pricing if it is imported. You understand me? When you import finished products, in addition to the price on the world market, you also have freight, and then the exchange rates that you have to use to calculate the import that you are making. But when you import crude oil, you cut out the problem you have when you have to import refined products, because refined products are invariably more expensive than crude oil. So that is it. And that is the reason why we expect that the price at the pump will fall in coming weeks. So that is all things being equal.
That's petroleum. At the power side and utility side, government also stands accused that things are increasing on that side. In fact, Dennis Abuaje Miracles, before his arrest, was on this campaign of showing to Ghanaians that they were paying more for electricity.
He was just engaging in misguided propaganda. Again, you see.
But the facts are there.
No,
PURC has approved increments.
Imaru, you see, I saw Dennis Bandy about claims that it is not true that the increases were the result of an IMF conditionality. He didn't know what he was talking about. Either he was deliberately lying or he was just ignorant. Look, in 2024, in December of 2024, that's when the NPP took their last tranche before they left power of the IMF EFC facility. So I think it was about $360 million or so. As a conditionality, they reiterated the need for automatic price adjustment in the pricing of electricity. That means that every cost item must be catered for within the tariff. What they were doing is that after agreeing that with the NPP, they were not adding fuel, which they were importing to fire thermal plants. So when we came in compliance with that IMF regulation, we had to factor in fuel. So once you factor in fuel, it becomes an additional cost. And that's the reason why the tariff went up. When they were not factoring in fuel, they told the IPP players and ECG that government will cater for it through subsidy. In other words, government will pay for the cost of fuel. They were not paying. So they racked up debt, which threatened that whole sector. To get rid of that debt, we needed to factor the price of fuel in the tariff structure for electricity. So that's what led to that increase. But once that happened at the level of, you see that these days, in fact, on about 2 occasions or so, PRC has announced reductions. That is after the initial increment. So if Dennis tells you that the IMF conditionality did not hold, it is a blatant falsehood. The document is there. Okay. If you check page 71 or so of the staff report that covered their negotiations for the receipt of the last tranche, it is clearly spelled there in black and white that all factors, that is exchange rates, the cost of fuel, and other factors must be factored into the tariff bill. So it is not true that government has done this outside of the IMF agreement. It is not true.
Before we go,
and indeed, to be clear, it was the NPP that agreed it, which then bound
The
government of Ghana.
Before
Yes.
we go, are we at war with South Africa?
No, not at all.
Diplomatic war?
Not at all. As far as I know, our relations remain cordial, except that
Why do we refuse to allow their president to come and visit them?
no, we didn't refuse. Look, we cannot be oblivious to the fact that things have happened. This xenophobic attack has significantly affected Ghanaians and other African nationals, to the extent that we have had to get aircraft to bring our people home because they were coming under xenophobic attack. In a circumstance like that, any visit by either president to either country will be overshadowed by those developments. We have a standing arrangement in South Africa where either president visits either country to discuss matters relating to economic relations, diplomatic relations, and social ties and what have you. So that is the focus for any visit of a South African president to Ghana or vice versa. But we felt that to the extent that these xenophobic attacks continue to linger in the air, any visit will be overshadowed by it. So we thought that we should get that out of the way before the visit happened. So it was not that we cancelled it. We only made a proposal which they accepted.
Very well.
That is what it is.
Thank you so much for joining us on Face to Face.
The pleasure is mine.
Honorable Felix Kwakye Ofosu, Chief Government Spokesperson, Minister of State in charge of communication for the government, speaking.